When people think of classic games from their childhood, outside of Donkey Kong Country, this one is right up there for me as well. Hello everybody! CSF Watson back here again, and welcome to the first episode of Super Mario for Retro Replay. Let's be honest with ourselves, what Nintendo kid did not grow up with Mario as a kid? We're going to be starting with the original, the good old classic first ever Super Mario Bros. I don't think I'll touch Super Mario 2 or the Lost Levels. For the most part, I just want to play the games that I remember the most from my childhood, and those were the original Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario 3. I might pick the other two up later just for the sake of adding content, but for now, we are off with the classic World 1-1. I actually used to have a t-shirt of 1-1, but it was based off the NES version, so it was all the NES's more blocky bits as compared to the more popping colors of the All Stars version. But I never really thought about it until I went back and played them again. Unlike Donkey Kong Country, Mario All Stars never got a re-release on the Virtual Console, but rather it got its own full-fledged Wii disc. I think I still have the disc, and I would bet dollars to donuts my dad probably still has the box art from it, but since it is a game that is easily accessible on the Nintendo Switch now, I haven't touched the old Wii version. And just like Donkey Kong, for the most part, I wasn't exactly the best at these old games when I was younger, so I would just play the same levels over and over and over and over again. Which was great when I was playing the Battle Royale Mario 35, but not so great when I was trying to actually say, yes, I've beaten X, Y, and Z game. And unlike Donkey Kong, once I got my hands on the Wii version, I didn't really try to actively beat this game. But I did beat Mario 3, which we'll be getting to eventually. But that's a few weeks away. For now though, we have completed 1-1 because, let's be honest, who doesn't know 1-1 like the back of their hand? And on to 1-2. At first I thought about maybe playing this game using some of the skips that we have here in these levels, but then I figured, nah, let's actually try to beat every single world in this game for grins and giggles. Plus, it's a good way to challenge myself. Normally, whenever I played these games when I was little, I would play 1-1, then 1-2, and then go through the top and go through the warp pipes to the next world, or even further, so I hardly ever played like Worlds 2, 3, or 4, or things of that nature. And I still sometimes think, oh yes, maybe there's a secret item hidden in these blocks, and if I just keep jumping, maybe I will get the one that's actually an item. Coming back and playing this again, I was surprised at how different I thought it was compared to what my memory said. I'm so used to the ability in Mario games, both nowadays and some later ones on the SNES, where if you jump on an enemy, Mario will jump even higher if you press the jump button as you hit the enemy. If you land on a Goomba and press the jump button, you get a bit of extra height. But in this game, if you jump on an enemy, it's just you get a quick little boop, and then you're going back down. You can't really get much control by jumping on enemies in this game. And that definitely threw me. I think they added this feature for Mario 35 because that's what a lot more folks are accustomed to, but I guess it wasn't in the original? I'd have to play the NES version again to see if that were the case, or if in fact the developers decided to try and give this game a bit more challenge by removing that feature. Not entirely sure why, but it is what it is, and we just gotta keep going forward. So, it's Mario. Everybody loves Mario. So why did I start with Donkey Kong instead of Mario? It's kind of goofy, but I kind of answered the question when I did the Minecart Madness episode a few months ago. I was super into Thomas the Tank Engine trains, and the fact that Donkey Kong had a train-like segment, that meant I liked it more than Mario. Yes, I know that is the goofiest and most kid thing ever, but let's be real, a lot of kids probably had a similar mindset. Whee! A good case in point showcasing how I don't exactly know some of the later levels that you can skip after 1-2. I have barely played this level at all in my youth, and I've barely played it in my adulthood, so it's just something that's going to be kicking my teeth in, I suppose. I think the only time I've actually beaten this game was when I kept using the rewind feature over and over and over again. One could argue that it means I'm terrible at Mario, but I would like to say it means I'm more accustomed to the modern 3D style as well as the 2D style of Mario games. The style that's more likely to give you jump actions instead of just saying like, oh, you jumped on an enemy, well now you're gonna sink like a brick until you hit the ground. Okay, admittedly a part of it is because I'm not the best at this, and this is a type of Mario that, while good, is not one I have practiced a ton. Modern 2D Mario games have a lot more control in terms of the D-pad. I've had moments where I'd be playing a segment similar to this, and I felt like I have a lot more control of stopping Mario in the modern version than I do in this older version. But then again, this is an older version, and this is Castle 1-4, and I'm still struggling with it, just for the sake of getting a mushroom. I honestly probably don't even need the mushroom. This first Bowser encounter is so easy, I could probably just run with it. So in the meantime, I'll keep jumping around like a madman, trying to see if I can find every last secret in this area, even though it's going to give me nothing but coins for the most part. I honestly wonder if there is something up there, but I do not have the know-how nor overall interest to do the thing, because jump, done. That was World 1, and that was easy. And since it was only a few minutes, we're not stopping there, we're gonna keep going. And of course, the classic line, "Thank you, Mario! But our princess is in another castle." I swear, the Mario movie better at least reference that line once. That would be a phenomenal callback. I think the Mario movie looks decent. It doesn't look like the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life, but it looks like a fun little animated adventure movie. Let's be honest, Mario is not exactly the place you go for grand, epic storytelling with a cohesive narrative and things of that nature, in the games at least. The most they did this was mostly in Sunshine and Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and a little bit in Odyssey, but even then it was kind of more or less bare-bones story. The princess has been captured again, and now there's a bit of an extra reason as to why that has happened instead of just, oh, the princess is kidnapped, we have to go save her. I will admit though, I'm still a bit iffy on Chris Pratt, but I'm willing to give him a chance. We've only heard him in segments, we haven't heard him throughout the entire movie. I don't think we've even heard him say more than a short phrase. Have we even heard him say a full sentence in one of these trailers? When we saw the clip from the Game Awards, he didn't sound terrible. Keegan-Michael Key doesn't exactly sound like Toad from the games, but he's doing his own version, and it sounds enough like Toad to get away with it. I think Chris Pratt could be a similar issue. He hasn't had much to go off of in terms of showcasing his voice in this movie just yet. The one that actually has me kind of skeptical is Seth Rogen. He just straight up sounds like Seth Rogen. I know Chris Pratt in most of his clips just sounds like Chris Pratt as well, but you can also hear him trying to emulate Mario. Granted, Donkey Kong is an ape and he doesn't exactly have an English voice to go off of outside of, well, that horrifying 3D cartoon that aired in the States years ago, but I hope that Seth Rogen will have at least tried to do at least something different, maybe a different type of inflection, but it's just, "Now you die. I am Seth Rogen." That's about it. It was just one line though, and it is similar to Chris Pratt. I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt if I get to hear him say more than just a sentence. At the same time though, given that particular inflection was supposed to be like high energy and goofy, followed by serious, it doesn't exactly fill me with confidence for his performance as Donkey Kong. I'll still probably see the movie at some point. I still think it looks decent. I'll watch the full thing and then give it my judgment. Very rarely do I see a trailer and automatically go, oh, this movie is going to be terrible. I think the only few movies I've seen trailers for and then realized this was going to be terrible on the onset was the trailer for Fan 4 Stick and then the trailer for most of Zack Snyder's movies in the DC universe after Man of Steel. And even if the trailer's horrible, that doesn't necessarily mean that the movie itself is going to be bad, it just might mean it had bad marketing. I honestly believe that if you want to watch a movie, watch it for its full worth and judge it on your own merits. Don't necessarily go to the internet and say, oh, people are saying X, Y, and Z, so that's how I'm going to interpret this movie and my response to it critically. My brother did kind of something similar with The Rise of Skywalker a few years ago. It was having a lot of backlash on the internet, people were saying this, that, the other about it. My family didn't see it until after Christmas Day in 2019, so it had been a few weeks, I think. But 3 of the 4 of us went in not knowing much outside of the trailers for this movie. My brother went in already having read the Wikipedia and knowing all the spoilers and determining before even seeing it that he was going to hate it. Just basically saying, well, everybody else is hating it, so I'll go in, watch it, and I guess I hate it too. Not to say that's an invalid opinion, he could have very well have gone into the movie without having read all of those points on the internet and still come away with the movie feeling the exact same way. But for my money, if you go into a movie expecting to hate it, you're going to come out of it hating it. I honestly think The Rise of Skywalker was decent, and given its production issues, I find it a strange enigma and intriguing case study of cinema as a whole. It's no secret that Disney completely and utterly rushed the process of making this sequel trilogy, and it shows in both how erratic the story is and that there's no consistent tone between the characters. Say what you will about George Lucas and him having complete creative control over the prequel trilogy, whereas he only directed one movie and then produced the other two in the original trilogy, it was still his story. He knew the world from front to back and knew what he wanted to happen in general. Disney just kind of said, well, multiple directors seems to be how Star Wars works, and that's how we avoid being like George Lucas in the prequel trilogy, so let's just do that before we figure out what the overarching story is even going to be. And then you have J.J. Abrams write what is considered a pretty decent Star Wars movie with The Force Awakens, but then all of his story ideas get thrown out by the next director for The Last Jedi, and then Disney panics and tells J.J. Abrams, okay, you're back on as director for the next one, when J.J. didn't even have a script ready for 9, much less all the changes that Rian Johnson made to his story ideas. He basically had to write a new script on the fly, and then write, direct, and produce the entire thing from scratch with an expected 2-year turnaround. I personally, as someone who has studied film and knows how tricky it can be to make a movie even if you're writing a short film, I find that impressive. Not to say that like, oh, that automatically makes it good, but I find it impressive that a production team with such limited time can make something halfway decent. If J.J. Abrams or Rian Johnson were given full control of a Star Wars trilogy, I honestly think they could have done decently. J.J. maybe more than Rian because while The Last Jedi was a good sci-fi movie, it wasn't a great Star Wars movie in my opinion. I still love other movies by Rian Johnson. The Knives Out franchise has been absolutely great with its 2 movies so far. But that story where he has a lot more creative freedom and control over the project plays more to his strengths as a director as opposed to Star Wars. And even with all the flaws that I can admit about The Rise of Skywalker, it was the first time that I felt like I walked out of the theater having watched a completely brand new Star Wars movie. Not the greatest Star Wars movie, granted I kind of needed to get out of the adrenaline rush after I got out of the theater to realize that, but a good, new Star Wars movie. And all of that rambling just to say, the Mario movie trailers have not done anything to make me say, yeah, this movie looks terrible yet. I am willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, even if Chris Pratt doesn't sound the best in the few clips we've heard of him. What's really surprised me about the Mario movie though is that at the time of recording this, we're about 2 months out, maybe even less, from the release of the Mario movie in theaters. I wasn't expecting a new game announcement or anything like that, something like, hey, the Mario Odyssey 2 is coming out not long after the movie comes out. The Mario movie doesn't need a video game tie-in, it's literally a video game movie. Its tie-in are the original games. However, I'm kinda surprised we're not seeing much of anything in terms of Mario games, be it re-releases, ports to SNES or NES Classic. A lot of the games have already made their way to the online collections, but I thought maybe like, hey, in time for the Mario movie, check out Mario RPG. Check out some of these older Mario games that we haven't added yet. With Mario RPG, I could see them saying like, we'll finally add it once the Wii U eShop finally dies in about a month, but for some of the other games, with the announcement of the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance collections for Switch Online, they also came with a handful of Mario games. Some of them we hadn't really seen before, other of them were GBA ports of old SNES or NES games, like the Super Mario Advance 4. I figured they would have saved those types of games for once we got closer to the movie release. Celebrate Mario's new movie on the big screen with some of these games. I could even see them doing a discount on several Mario games as we do get closer to the release. Like I said, I'm recording this in February, so we're still about a few months away from the release of the movie. It's entirely possible about 2 weeks before the release of the movie itself, they could say, now on the Switch eShop, get all of these classic Mario games for about 50% off. I'm not holding my breath on that, however, because this is Nintendo. It's been over 5 years now, and they only just officially themselves offered a discount on Breath of the Wild on the eShop. You could find sales for the game at some retailers like Best Buy or GameStop or what have you, or find a used copy at a local game shop like I did for my Switch version. I originally got the Wii U version back in 2017, but Nintendo hardly ever reduces the price of their own games on the digital shop, especially if it's one of their flagship games. I can't even remember the last time I saw a discount on Mario Odyssey on the eShop, if ever. Admittedly, a lot of those games are bought up right on launch because they are those flagship games, but it is kind of a bummer for folks trying to get into these games for the first time that they do have to pay full price for a game that's almost 5 to 6 years old at this point. Granted, I usually buy these games on the onset at launch, but I still stand by my statement, especially given some other games on PlayStation that are their big flagships, but still get sales as they go along in their life. But now we've completed World 3, and I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching this first episode of Mario 1 on Retro Replay. Please like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys next time. Let's go!